If I were to send you back in time 3 million years and drop you into the warm and tropical ocean off the coast of somewhere like the Caribbean, you might have some concerns. Apart from getting to shore, seeking shelter, and finding your way back to your present timeline, one of your more major concerns might be the gigantic 60-foot-long sharks in the water with you. Megalodon aren't something we worry about today. The newest megalodon teeth are still 2 million years old, and we would likely be very aware of these sharks being alive, as they inhabited warm and shallow coastal waters. However, this fact hasn't stopped people from reporting sightings of huge sharks still in the ocean. Some being described just as big, if not bigger, than Meg. In fact, the idea of the megalodon still being alive seems to have become a popular opinion in recent times. But is this based on solid evidence? Well, today we're going to take a look at some reports, theories, and even video evidence, and see if people have actually spotted the very large and possibly secretive shark. One of the more famous reports of a Titan-sized shark comes from Port Stephens, Australia in 1918. The encounter was recorded by a man named David Steed in his book, Sharks and Rays of Australian Seas. In this book, he interviews a few fishermen about an encounter they had at the port, and they claim to have seen a gigantic white-coloured shark. The big shark came up to the surface and started attacking crayfish pots that are around 3 feet in diameter. And I do mean gigantic. Before we go any further, let's mention how big a megalodon could get. There's a cool research paper on nature.com. Using a 2D reconstruction, it estimates the max size of the megalodon at about 18 meters, around 60 feet. A study in June 2021 done at the Florida Museum of Natural History bumped that size up to about 65 feet. They got their new estimation by recording the width of the teeth to get the jaw width and then extrapolate the overall size. In any study of size, it's difficult to be certain, since all that remains of the huge sharks are their big teeth, a few vertebrae, and maybe parts of the jaw. But let's be generous and go with the upper limit and say a big meg could reach about 65 feet. Okay, so that's pretty big, right? So how big was the shark that the fishermen saw at Port Stephens in 1918? Well, the reported shark was apparently 115 feet in length. Some of the fishermen said even bigger. If this creature did exist, it would have been 50 feet longer than our upper estimate of Megalodon. Not just that, it would have been longer than the longest blue whale ever recorded. Also, they said the creature was white, which seems a little odd. Some theories online think the men may have seen an albino whale shark. Whale sharks do live around there, and white ones, while rare, do exist. Whale sharks, though, tend to have a maximum length of about 18 meters, and that's like the maximum. A lot smaller than the 115 feet. The thing is, Size estimates of animals are always difficult, and humans have a tendency to overestimate when confronted with a large creature. It's also difficult to determine the size of something that's in the water. According to one newspaper, the men weren't from Australia originally, but rather from Greece, and maybe this was their first encounter with a whale shark. Perhaps seeing an albino whale shark for the first time shocked them, and they overestimated the size. Perhaps the creature was a different, currently unknown species of shark, or maybe it really was a strange and ridiculously large megalodon. Maybe the story was made up. I don't know, and I wasn't there, so I don't really want to call anyone a liar, but the odd details and size estimates do make me cautious. Next, let's look at some reports from the coast of Mexico. The next candidate we'll look at is the Black Demon of CORTEZ, a large, mysterious shark seen inhabiting the waters of Mexico's Baja California Peninsula. Sightings have been reported by some fishermen, and the size reports go up to 60 feet, meg-sized. The creature apparently resembles a large great white shark that's dark in color with a large tail. The image of Megalodon looking like a great white shark, only bigger, did seem to be the prevailing theory for a long time. After all, the primary remains of Megalodon are its teeth, and when you do a side-by-side comparison with Megalodon and great white shark teeth, they do look very similar. The only apparent difference, at least at first, is that the meg teeth are much bigger. But are they really closely related? The full name of the meg used to be Carcharodon Megalodon, and that puts it in the same genus as the great white shark, aka Carcharodon carcharias. But it's not called that anymore. Why? When the meg was first scientifically described in 1843, it was put into the genus Carcharodon. Again, the same genus as the great white shark. Between 1843 and now, more evidence of both the megalodon and the great white shark's evolution has been found and documented. Closer inspection of the teeth found the great white shark teeth are actually more similar to the now extinct Carcharodon hastalis, another large shark also described in 1843 that lived from about 20 to 3 million years ago. Around the same time, researchers found that there were strong similarities between the teeth of the meg and Carcharodon. As time went on, more evidence cemented these theories. In 1988, a 6.5 million year old, well-preserved fossil showed a clear link between the great white and the broad-toothed mako. Around the same time, the lineage of the megalodon was traced all the way back to the Cretaceous, with Cretolamna appendiculata, then Odotus obliquus, Odotus mogogericus, Carcharodon angustidens, and Carcharodon chuyotensis, and finally ending with the megalodon. So the meg and the great white aren't as closely related as once thought, and the great white didn't evolve from the megalodon. I know this is a really long tangent, but it's sort of important to establish now, especially when we get to some of the sightings with video, but more on that later. So, they are still related. I mean, they're both still sharks, obviously, and both sharks are in the order laminiforms. But the question is, would a megalodon resemble a great white? To be clear, again, we can't really say for certain what the shark looked like, since we only have a few teeth and a few vertebrae. But, yeah, maybe. It's not a bad start. Though the teeth aren't as similar to a great white's as we used to think, they're still close enough to suggest similar diets. In the mid-90s, Dr. Michael Gottfried, professor of vertebrate paleontology, did work trying to reconstruct the look of the megalodon. He suggested it would have had a thick, robust head, resulting in a more curved snout. Also, due to its need for a high food intake, it would have had a more robust, thick body. Other research suggests that its dorsal fin and tail were similar to that of a great white, though its pectoral fins were probably proportionally longer than a great white's. And how about color? Well, countershading is pretty common in sharks today. Countershading is where the top half of the animal is dark, so it's hard to see when looking at it from above, and the bottom half of the animal is pretty light, so it's hard to see when looking at it from below. A common feature in many sharks, it makes sense that the Meg may have looked the same. So basically, a very big great white with a short curved head, a bit more bulk, and a long pectoral fins is a reasonable guess for the rough appearance of the Meg. Anyway, let's jump back to the coast of Mexico. So, does this describe the demon of CORTEZ? In ways. I haven't found descriptions of a short face and large pectoral fins. The sightings focus on the dark color and large tail. The large tail checks out. Meg would have had a very big tail. The dark color, well, maybe that could be people looking down at the shark from a boat and only seeing the darker section of its body. Although I say up to 60 feet, size estimates vary between 20 to 60 feet. And the thing is, 20 feet is certainly attainable for a great white. Some people think the black demon may just be a large great white. Again, maybe the countershading is throwing people off and making them think it's black in color. Some have suggested it's a great white with melanism, which is basically like the opposite of albinism, making it black instead of white. Perhaps this is another possible case for mistaken identity, except instead of albinism, we have melanism, and instead of a whale shark, we have a great white. Speaking of a giant great whites, there was another sighting near the Great Barrier Reef in the 1960s, another Meg contender resembling a great white in appearance. This account was recorded in a book about hunting shark fossils called Let's Go Fossil Shark Tooth Hunting, a guide for identifying sharks and where and how to find their superbly formed fossilized teeth, by Clay Cartmel. However, as the book is tricky to get, I'm using Megalodon Fact or Fiction by Rick Emmer. The story is about sailors who at first didn't want to tell about their experience for fear of being ridiculed, but eventually spoke of a time when they had to weigh anchor to repair the ship's engine. And then, a huge, completely white shark, larger than their boat, swam by. Maybe a similar shark to the Port Stephens shark. In fact, maybe too similar. You see, that's a bit of a problem, and the story gets bashed a bit for the similarities, as if it was just a copy. It also doesn't help that there isn't any corresponding evidence, and I can't find much more information on this one. But we keep looking at second-hand accounts. Let's look at some first-hand accounts. So, for a first-hand account, we can look to the novelist Zane Grey. In 1929, Mr. Grey was on his boat with his son near the French Polynesian island of Rangiroa when he spotted a shark larger than his 30 to 40 foot boat. He described the shark as yellow and green with some white spots and a square head. 5 years later, Grey and his son saw a similar shark again off the coast of Rangiroa. This time, the shark was between 40 and 50 feet. The square head and size, as well as the white spots, sound a lot like a whale shark. But both men said they know what a whale shark looks like and that it wasn't that. Mr. Grey apparently said, "He was not a whale shark. The whale shark has a distinctive white purplish-green appearance with large brown spots and a much narrower head." This is sort of a weird way to describe a whale shark though, so who knows. Up until now we've looked at sightings, but what about attacks? What happens when one of these sighted monster sharks decides to bite? Returning again to Megalodon Fact or Fiction, author Rick Emmer gives us an account of just that. He writes of an encounter from March of 1954 with a ship known as the Rachel Cohen. When the ship was in an Adelaide dry dock, workers removed 17 large teeth from the ship's wooden hull. The teeth were in a semicircular pattern that was 6 feet in diameter. The teeth apparently resembled great white shark teeth, only bigger. The captain of the ship recalled a shudder near Indonesia and thought the ship had hit a tree trunk. Now we're talking. No whale shark is going around leaving huge teeth in ships' hulls. Surely this gives some credibility to the Meg still being out there. Let's put this huge bite mark on display or something, right? Get some scientists to look at it, run some tests, get some concrete evidence? Well, where is the Rachel Cohen now? Well, according to the website Passengers in History, an initiative of the South Australian Maritime Museum, the Rachel Cohen was destroyed by a fire in Darwin in 1924. 1924. 30 years before it was attacked by a megalodon-sized shark. Huh. Maybe another ship was named after it or something? But I can't find evidence of that. Okay, so what about some more recent evidence? A quick search online reveals multiple video compilations of top 10 megalodon sightings or megalodon still alive, including megalodon caught on camera. Now, we have sightings with some video evidence. There's actually a bunch, but it would take too long to look at all of them. So let's just look at some of the more popular ones. One video shows an alleged megalodon washed up on a beach. At first glance, it certainly is a very big shark. But it's actually not a megalodon. It's a 26-foot basking shark, reported on by CNN in 2009. Basking sharks can grow over 30 feet in length, so it's easy to see how a big shark like this could be mistaken for a meg, especially if you're primed to think it already is a meg. A video went viral on TikTok showing a large shark swimming beside a ship off the coast of Cape Cod, with some people asking if it was a megalodon. Though it's likely to be another basking shark again, as they roam in the area and they have the distinctive triangular head. In fact, the person who filmed the video, Alex Albrecht, said they were quick to identify it as a basking shark, again due to the shape of its head. State shark expert Greg Skommel also identified it as a basking shark. He estimates it was around 20 feet in length. Basking sharks have a tendency to be misidentified as meg, as do some whale sharks. And in fact, sometimes you see a cage dive video with a big great white labeled megalodon. If the shark looks like a great white, is the size of a great white, and is in an area popular because it is inhabited by great white sharks, it's probably a great white. Now, you might be asking, okay, isn't there a video with a big shark that we definitely know isn't a great white, isn't a whale shark, and isn't a basking shark? Oh yes, there is. In 2016, a video surfaced online showing a 50-foot shark. The video was filmed 1 mile down in the Mariana Trench, and no, sorry, that's a lie. There is a real video, but it's not from the Mariana Trench. It was actually filmed off the coast of Japan in the Suruga Bay, and the shark is not 50 foot long. It's a 7 meter or 22 foot Pacific sleeper shark, a relative of perhaps the better known Greenland shark. This video is a very popular megalodon video, but it's not megalodon. I should probably point out that there is a bunch of photos and videos that pop up in these Megalodon Still Alive videos that come straight from the Discovery Channel's mockumentary Megalodon, The Monster Shark Lives, and its sequels. Again, this is a mockumentary. Discovery Channel openly admits that these are fictional shows for entertainment. The problem with video evidence in general, and even with eyewitness accounts, is that it's hard to know exactly what you are looking at when what you are looking at is submerged underwater. And when our oceans are filled with big sharks, like basking sharks, whale sharks, and even great whites, and we are very obsessed with megalodon, it seems almost inevitable that mistaken identity will happen, whether the Megalodon is still out there or not. But like I said at the beginning of this video, Megalodon inhabited shallow coastal waters. Surely we would have noticed 60-foot sharks by now, right? Unless there is another theory that the Megalodon adapted to live in a different environment. Where, you might ask? Well, I think you probably already guessed it. The Mariana Trench. I'm sure you've heard of the Mariana Trench, the crescent-shaped dent in the floor of the Pacific Ocean, over 1,500 miles long with an average width of 43 miles and a depth of almost 7 miles. And everybody says it, but just to reiterate a cool fact, if you put Mount Everest at the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, its peak would still be 7,000 feet below sea level. Perfect for a Meg, right? Wrong. Sorry, but this isn't really the type of habitat for a megalodon. Preliminary geochemical analysis of isotopes in remains, which can help scientists estimate the body temperature of prehistoric organisms, indicate that megalodon was warm-blooded in the same sense as the great white. The great white generates enough body heat to keep it warmer than its surrounding water, which means it burns about 6 pounds a day. Meg may have weighed 3 times more and would need a lot more food to maintain its size, but animals near the ocean floor have to get largely by the scraps that sink to the bottom. Remember, Megalodon was an apex predator that preyed on dolphins and whales. It needed a lot of food. Also, not to mention, the deep waters would be far too cold for Megalodon. Another point experts make is that Megalodon would have been shedding teeth constantly. It's why we find so many Meg teeth today, and they are relatively common. And all the teeth we find are at least 2 million years old. But wait, you might say, didn't we find teeth that were only a few thousand years old? Well, kind of, but not really. The teeth in question were dredged from the seafloor in 1875 by the HMS Challenger. They were then dated by Vladimir Chernesky in 1959. He tried to date the teeth by measuring the layer of manganese dioxide that had accumulated on them. He calculated the first to be 11,333 years old and the second to be 24,206 years old. But these results have been heavily contested. For one thing, manganese dioxide dating is very inaccurate, and secondly, there's no way to prove that the accumulation of manganese dioxide started right when the shark died. There are better, more accurate methods like the ionium-thorium method. And better and more accurate methods never give us teeth that are only a few thousand years old. They are always millions. But perhaps I moved away from the trench too fast. Let's look at it again. What if the Megalodon simply adapted or changed to survive the colder, darker waters? Or what if there are some sort of deep ocean vents pumping vast quantities of hot water into an underwater ecosystem? This is actually the premise of the 1997 novel, The Meg, a novel of deep terror in which Megalodon have survived in the Mariana Trench. This is the book that became the 2018 movie The Meg, but in the movie they used a different trench. Though The Meg is a science fiction novel, the author, Mr. Steve Alton, does seem to think there might be something to this theory. In the book Megalodon Hunting the Hunter, there is a quote from Mr. Alton on a chapter about Megalodon surviving. He says, "What I vehemently disagree with is when so-called experts state that an ocean-dwelling species like Meg is extinct simply because we haven't seen one. To me, this isn't science. It's guessing without research, which usually gets the so-called experts into trouble. There's some more as well. He talks about how the coelacanth was thought to be extinct, and he makes the argument that many proponents of the living meg theory seem to make. And it boils down to this: the ocean is pretty huge, and we haven't explored most of it. There is still a lot to find out there. And maybe one of the things to find is the meg. I think this is usually part of the living megalodon theory. How can you say for certain it isn't out there with the majority of our oceans unexplored? Well, I guess you can't. But I feel like the experts don't say it's impossible, they say it's very, very unlikely. Paleobiologist Megan Bach of the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., said it's extremely unlikely and that we would have found a tooth by now. A simulation was done in Zurich to try and calculate the likelihood of meg surviving. Out of 10,000 simulations, only 6 said there was a 1% chance of the meg surviving. I think a lot of videos about the meg usually ended here. Scientists say probably not, but we have a big ocean, who knows, comment, like, subscribe, etc., etc. But I want to ask you a question. Why Megalodon? I'm going to say something that's really cheesy and cliche, but I think it's appropriate. The hype and buzz around living Megalodon says more about us than it does about the meg. Consider this. Many sharks have gone extinct over time, but they don't really get talked about, or at least not nearly to the same extent as Megalodon. Where are the Crusher Shark Still Alive videos? Where are the top 10 Ginsu shark caught on camera? Have you ever read about an anvil shark surviving in the Mariana Trench? No. We focus on Megalodon because Megalodon is special to us. The biggest shark of all time is one heck of a superlative to have. And looking basically like a giant great white, is it any surprise it grabs our attention? Is it any wonder that it captures our imagination? That it shows up in more and more books, movies, games, and YouTube videos? I mean, we're talking about an apex predator with a bite force greater than a T-Rex. And I think it's hard to swallow that something this fierce and powerful and large could go extinct. But I'd like to quote the show Walking with Beasts. In the final episode, the narrator says this: "We have since built museums to celebrate the past and spend decades studying prehistoric lives. And if all this has taught us anything, it is this: no species lasts forever. Even if you get to be the biggest shark of all time, you're not immortal. Even if you are the king of the oceans for millions of years, your reign will eventually end. But hey, as long as humans are still around, you won't be forgotten. And if somehow, you're still alive out there, we'll keep an eye out. Thanks for watching."